Over 200,000 people live on this 3-square-mile island for one simple but odd reason. Malé is the capital of Maldives, one of the most popular tourist destination countries. Increased its population from 39% in 2014 to 41% in 2022. The reason behind why half of the Maldives' population inhabits this tiny island is perplexing. Living in the Maldives means living in one of two different worlds. One resides in the capital, Malé, which the New York Times wittingly called a micro-Manhattan located in the Indian Ocean. The others live on the outer islands, which are among the most remote and peaceful villages in the world. The Maldives is facing a dilemma that many other developing countries in Asia are also grappling with. The outer islands, which offer an idyllic life of tuna fishing and coconut farming on their crushed coral shores, are gradually losing their inhabitants. The isolation that attracts tourists seems to be incompatible with the aspirations of the islanders in a country that has been modernized by global tourism. As a result, the government is constantly building up Malé, the country's only actual city. However, Malé is already struggling to accommodate the population. By some measures, it is the most densely populated island globally, with almost half of the country's 520,000 individuals living on a landmass that can be traversed on foot in about 20 minutes. If more Maldivians are going to move there, the city's physical structure will need to be significantly reworked. Meanwhile, it continues to spread outwards wherever it can. The government is constructing sea bridges around Malé to artificial islands filled with housing projects backed by China and India. On January 22nd, President Mohamed Muizzu declared his ambitious plan for an undersea tunnel connecting Malé to a land reclamation project where Chinese investors will help build 65,000 housing units on only a sandbar. Muizzu said the tunnel would provide commuters with breathtaking sea views. However, the feasibility of this project has yet to be determined, and it remains to be seen whether it will become a reality. The hyper-concentration on Malé forces Maldivans to look for job opportunities here. According to recent statistics, 93% of impoverished individuals in the country are living in challenging conditions. Despite past welfare gains, the remaining poor population is still struggling to meet their basic needs due to a lack of access to essential resources. The country has implemented a robust redistributive model aimed at improving the living standards of its citizens. This model includes universal access to basic health and education services, pensions, health insurance, and income support programs, all of which have contributed to a larger share of income for poorer households. However, some challenges to the welfare system still need to be addressed. For instance, there is a significant difference in access to economic opportunities between the capital city, Malé, and the other islands in the country. This differential access is reflected in the higher Gini index over the entire population, 29.3, than within Malé, 25.2, indicating a higher level of income inequality. Additionally, self-employed individuals are more vulnerable to economic shocks and have limited access to social safety nets. Finally, overcrowding is a significant challenge affecting poorer urban households, making it difficult for them to maintain a decent standard of living. The issue of development in the Maldives has been a matter of significant concern for the nation's leaders. The former president, Mohamed Nasheed, proposed a solution to this dilemma by advocating for the decentralization of political authority and establishing regional service hubs. The underlying rationale behind this proposal was to disperse Malé's dangerous concentration of politics and population. The idea was to create regional centers that would offer the same level of services as the capital city. However, the government led by Rais Yamin has not implemented this proposal. Instead, they have only paid lip service to regional development while simultaneously scrapping decentralization. The finance ministry has expressed concern that having people spread across 187 islands is an obstacle to the government's development idea, offering poor value for money on infrastructure projects with the belief that living on an uninhabited island is sufficient to stay alive, but that a certain quality of life and a certain lifestyle can only be enjoyed on islands with large populations. The ministry argued that the current model of development is unsustainable and that the government needs to focus on creating cities that can support large populations. It also suggested that the government should consider ways to incentivize people to move to these cities. A study showed that people in the Maldives decide whether or not to move to a different place based on how they feel about the benefits and drawbacks of moving, how they think their friends and family will react, and how much control they feel they have over the situation. Malé has a lot of jobs and good healthcare, but it's also overcrowded and not as nice to live in as other parts of the country. People who live on other islands in the Maldives have a better quality of life and are happier, but they might not have as many job opportunities or better healthcare. Apart from the modern urbanization and economic argument, there is a cultural or historical explanation for why half of the Maldives live in Malé. Malé has a rich history that dates back to the 12th century. At that time, the place was inhabited by Dravidian tribes who came from India and Ceylon. The settlement was initially called Mahal, which means papaya in the local language. It was named after the papaya tree, which grew faster than other trees planted by the first king of the island, Koimala. The first settlers lived without rulers and relied mainly on fishing for their livelihood. Koimala, who ruled the northern lands, was accepted by the locals and allowed to stay and settle in the Maldives. He built a palace, planted trees on the island, and renamed the city Malé, which became the residence of all rulers and was also known as the Royal Island. The name of the state, the Maldives, comes from the capital and means the islands of Malé. In the 17th century, Malé was surrounded by a fortified wall, mosques were built, and trading houses began to appear. However, until the 1920s, the city remained underdeveloped due to the forests that covered most of its territory and a small population of only 5,000 people. It wasn't until the 1930s that modernization began, with the establishment of banks, hospitals, educational institutions, and administrative buildings. As the population grew, the authorities had to demolish the defense walls, clear cemeteries, and expand roads to make room for housing. In 1968, the monarchy was abolished in the Maldives, and a new president, Ibrahim Nasir, took over. He ordered the reconstruction of the city and the demolition of the royal palace. A few years later, tourism arrived in the Maldives, and Malé has since transformed beyond recognition. As we look towards the future, it's natural to wonder what the city will look like. Well, in the long run, the entire country's future seems extremely grim. Apart from mesmerizing resorts, Maldives is also the country with the lowest lying in the world. It sits perilously close to the ocean's surface. 1,200 islands are an average of just 1.5 meters above it, and experts predict that islands will submerge under the sea by the end of the century. On the other hand, the population of Malé has been increasing rapidly, despite various challenges related to the quality of life in the area. However, significant investments have been made in the area of Malé, particularly in the development of Malé. As a result, it's expected that Greater Malé will continue to grow in the coming decades. Additionally, there is likely to be a trend towards centralization around other population centers as land reclamation projects gain momentum, and the Safer Islands and Population Consolidation Program focuses on developing more populated islands.